Preview time here on Rauta might very well be the last one this year. I truly don't know yet, but given that it's very close to Christmas or Yule, means that there's no so much time to listen to albums anymore, at least those incoming ones, and we'll see if there's anything interesting coming out anymore this year. However, reviews will be coming out later, very normal way. Now, in this preview, it's a very interesting thing that one of these albums is already out, but the review copy is still on its way. One is coming out later December, and one is in January. Let's go in alphabetical order, and I'll just tune you in with Metal Archive site, because no physical copies are here, not yet anyway. I'll start with Abigor, the Austrian, maybe the most famous Austrian black metal band of all times, which has been active for quite some time, that is, with very big discography. This time I'm talking about Totschläge, a Saint Slayer songbook, an interesting title for an album, continuing very much the topic that has been going on here. I mean, the first part is not exactly English, and the one in the end is very much so. Now, the previous one, called Hellensvang, I really must get into that for a bit, was a big disappointment for me. Way too artsy-fartsy, way too avant-garde, is way too weird, and in my opinion, very crappy album. And I got shit thrown at me because of that, because, I mean, some people really seem to like it. Nothing wrong with that, obviously, but for me, it was a really big disappointment, and I was like, there's nothing going on with this album versus the early albums such as Nachthymnen or Opus 4, which then again were quite different style and quality, I'm afraid. Now, Totschläge is a big step up from the previous one. I'm not gonna say it's one of the best Abigor albums out there, because in my opinion it's clearly not, but it's at least way more interesting versus the previous ones, because the band is now more focused in songwriting. Now, I gave this a couple of listens on digital copy, and I'm very undecided yet what to really think about it. I think it's quite decent, but I wouldn't call it as far as great based on 2 listens anyway. But it's going a little bit back to the roots versus the previous one, so at least it's quite interesting release in so many ways. But this, even with 51 minutes, it seems tad bit too lengthy. Now, I really have to think about it later on, what to say about it in the end when I finally get the review copy, but it has been out since December 8th, so already some 12 days or so. Anyway, keep an eye for that in case you just happen to be an Abigor fan but still missed the news about it. Now, the next album might not be interesting to you, especially if you come from a black metal or death metal background, but for me this was a very positive surprise. I was listening to this last weekend when I was doing a little bit of deadlifts, and this Spanish thrash metal band has never been able to convince me fully. I mean, they have done previously some nice stuff anyway, but this new album, which is self-titled, Angelus, Apatrida, and also, let me think, something like 7th full-length so far, is very nicely done thrash metal. Obviously, it helps that they have a big label to kind of back it up, but these 46 minutes, what was going on, just based on one listen, felt very energizing, very nicely done thrash metal, so it could be one of those February contenders of the month if there would be some. Anyway, for thrash metal maniacs, definitely a must-have album. And then last but not least, this is one of the albums that I guess for most people came by surprise, and is one of the most anticipated albums of 2020, at least the end part of the year. Now, Hate Forest is always being seen as a kind of a drug side project. Those guys have been active in so many bands, and now they're even more than before. But it's also a band that quit so many years ago, and now there's a new album after 15 years of break. That is, if we compare to the previous full length called Sorrow, and this one is called Hour of the Centaur. Just barely 38 minutes, or even less than that, and coming through Osmos Productions. Curiously enough, this release date is 25th of December, which is many countries it's called a bank holiday, meaning that no parcels, no packages are not moving. But anyway, maybe the digital version is actually by that time anyway. Now, this is very much a release that is exactly a kind of a must-have for Hate Forest fans. And in case you have liked the band before, well, I think it's very, very likely that you're gonna love this one. However, if you haven't liked the previous ones, I don't think, and I don't really definitely know that this is gonna change your mind, because it sounds very Hate Forest like from the beginning to the end. And for me, it is, based on one listen only, once again, a little bit lukewarm experience. I am not thrown away by this release, not more than the previous ones I've heard. But then again, it has never been a big thing for me. I remember when I got into Hate Forest with the first album, and I had it for my collection for a few years, but I never got very deep in love with the band. I mean, it's definitely decent band and decent release, decent music, but for me it's maybe a little bit too much a one-trick pony. That is not to say it's bad or anything, but I'm just saying that this new album is just what Hate Forest is all about. From a band to the band fans which like the previous ones, and that's it. Now, since this is an Osmos release, it's very unlikely that I will get a review copy of it. I don't know if the policy will change at some point, but so far they haven't replied to my email requests, so I don't think that's gonna change this year anyway. So this is probably my only take on the album. But anyway, for you, there is now information out that it's gonna be out in a week. So at least you have something to do during your Yule or Christmas fests, whatever you're celebrating right there. And that pretty much is that from these preview sessions. We will see if there will be more coming later on this year, or if we just move to January. Anyway, lots of reviews still coming as normal, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for some cool stuff. There are plenty of good albums still coming this year, and waiting to do my albums of the year list. We'll see about that later on. Meanwhile, take care and have a good Yule.